Credits to I Am Mr. Robot 27 for this video idea. Arcane and Andor may not be two stories that you think are very alike on the surface, mainly due to the stark difference in scope and medium that separates them. But once you start looking deeper and actually understand what both stories are truly about, the similarities become astonishing. Andor is an action-packed drama set in a galaxy far, far away that's main focal point is oppression, mental health issues, generational trauma, how oppressive regimes operate on the ground level, how this oppression affects regular people, how the oppression itself gives birth to rebellion, and how in rebellions there is almost always a base violence necessary for change to occur. Andor's Season 1 takes the wild and sometimes wacky Star Wars universe and recontextualizes it into this grounded, character-driven story that is about loss, tragedy, oppressive regimes, and most importantly, hope. It then went on to be nominated for a bunch of awards, have both critical and audience acclaim, and oh, what's that? Its projected season count got cut in half, and now we only have a single season to try and wrap up a story that was always destined to have a much larger scope. Now, let's compare this to Arcane. Arcane is an action-packed drama set in the fictional world of Runeterra, with the main focus being a character-driven story about oppressive regimes, mental health issues, generational trauma, and rebellion. Season 1 of Arcane takes the wild and sometimes wacky League of Legends lore and recontextualizes it into a grounded, character-driven story. Filled to the brim with complex relationships, realistic issues regarding oppression, how oppression itself fuels the fire for rebellion, and how, when it comes to rebellions, there is almost always a base violence necessary for change. Arcane Season 1 then went on to win a bunch of awards, have both critical and audience acclaim, and oh, what's that? Its projected season count got cut in half, and now we only have a single season to try and wrap up a story that was always destined to have a much larger scope. So with all that laid out, I hope it's clear that these two seemingly different shows actually have a lot in common. Not only with just the story, but in the meta as well. However, even though both stories started off very similar, their Season 2s are drastically different in quality. Arcane is a narrative mess that completely loses the plot of Season 1, and since the conclusion of Season 2, discourse surrounding Arcane has been complicated, to put it nicely. While Andor, on the other hand, while not perfect, did an absolutely fantastic job at wrapping up its story. It feels like a narrative successor and continuation of Season 1, and discourse regarding the season has been overwhelmingly positive, with many people citing it to be the greatest Star Wars we've received in over 40 years, if not the best ever. So how did this happen? How do we have two shows with very similar Season 1s placed under similar circumstances, but ended up with two drastically different final seasons for their respective stories? And while the short answer is the respective showrunners of the projects had a drastic difference in terms of ego, the longer one is Arcane is overly ambitious and loses its core narrative, while Andor stays in its lane. Now, if you want to hear all my thoughts on Arcane Season 2, I'd highly recommend checking out these two videos up on screen, or just scrolling through my Arcane playlist that contains over 30 videos regarding Arcane. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to go over a few of the key issues at hand. When I say Arcane is overly ambitious and loses the narrative of Season 1, I mean it quite literally. The core of Arcane Season 1 is the political conflict between Piltover and Zaun. This conflict opens up our season with the bridge scene, where we have a traumatized Powder and Violet looking at the destruction caused by oppression, and closes out our season with Vi and Jinx again looking at the destruction caused by oppression. But it goes beyond just these two characters. Every single character in Arcane Season 1 is motivated in some way by the political discourse between Piltover and Zaun. Silco, the main antagonist, is motivated by the oppression he has felt his entire life. Vander's strong ties to his family and attempt at being the peacekeeper is tied to the fact that he doesn't want to see another war between the two opposing factions. Victor is motivated to pursue Jason Hextech in order to help the Lanes and aid the people in the Undercity, since that is where he is from. And even Jace, who doesn't seem to be directly tied to Zaun, ends up being a key figurehead in the conflict with Zaun and a potential resolution. I cannot stress this enough. Every single character in Arcane's story revolves around the political conflict between Piltover and Zaun. And ending Season 1 with Jinx blowing up the very people at the top of this political hierarchy, Season 2 promised to be a season all about the climax and potential resolution of this generational conflict. And yet, it's barely mentioned. Season 2 ends up decomposing into a mindless slopfest where quote-unquote good guys all fight against the quote-unquote bad guys, who are foreign invaders who had really nothing to do with Season 1, and actual robot zombies who are being mind-controlled by the newly made God Victor. And even after all this time, just saying that out loud is insane. All of the core characters and themes of Season 1 get sidelined for new, bigger ones that aren't actually better. A perfect manifestation of this issue being Violet. Someone who was once debatably the main character of Arcane, with the most screen time by a decent margin, ends up literally becoming a side love interest for a different character, ending the story by claiming that she is the dirt under her partner's perfect nails. Yes, I definitely thought Arcane Season 1 would lead to our main character who hates Piltover living in a beautiful tower on the top of the world, literally calling herself the dirt under a leader of Piltover's nails. But I digress. Season 2 of Arcane completely lost the plot of Season 1 because instead of telling the actual coherent narrative that they already had, they decided to go bigger. All of the characters went in completely different and grander directions, with some becoming parents due to reigning children, some going traveling through the multiverse, because yes, that is a thing in Arcane now, and even one becoming a literal god. Ironically enough, one of the best lines delivered from Victor himself in Season 1 sums up Arcane Season 2's failures perfectly.
In the pursuit of great, we fail to do good.
Now let's compare this to Season 2 of Andor. Andor, unlike Arcane, actually sticks to the narrative that Season 1 was trying to tell. It's a grounded story that's centered around only really a few key plot elements, with the main theme of oppression and rebellion evolving in a natural way that keeps it at the forefront of the audience's mind while not becoming stale and boring. It doesn't become overly ambitious in scale, and for all intents and purposes, it sticks to what it knows and does well, while altering the setting and upping the stakes in a reasonable fashion. Personally, however, I still find Season 1 of Andor to be a bit better. I think Season 2 has some pacing issues, which was always bound to happen since they cut the season count so drastically, but at the end of the day, Season 2 of Andor accepted the time that it had, and instead of trying to cram 4 seasons worth of development into one, they opted for a simpler story in terms of scale, which gave them the opportunity to layer every single scene, every single line, and every single moment with an unbelievable amount of depth. Take the climax of the season, for example, the Gorman Massacre. On paper, especially compared to multiverses, time travel, and gods, an oppressive regime finding a way to wipe out an entire planet off the map, people included, is much smaller scale. But in making the scale smaller, Andor seized the opportunity to tell a genuinely heartbreaking and equally uplifting story about oppression, rebellion, and how people have to come together in order to overcome what seems to be an insurmountable obstacle. Tie this together with a lot of really difficult to swallow references to our own world, and you end up with not just a story to be told, but a genuinely profound and impactful piece of art. And frustratingly enough, this is what Arcane could have been. A story that, if it was able to swallow its ambition and desire to spark a cinematic universe, could have made an actual impact on the world and altered the way people perceive themselves and the world around them. Andor and Arcane are two sides of the same coin, with one of them being far shinier than the other. But you know what they say. It's a sad truth that those who shine the brightest often burn the fastest. And so is the case with Andor and Arcane. If you've made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below if you want to see more Arcane content, want to see more Andor content, want to see some more comparison content. I can compare a lot of things. I've seen a fair amount. Just let me know in the comments down below what you want to see. Your input is always appreciated, and please let me know what you thought about this video as a whole. Again, thank you for watching, and I hope to catch you on the next one. Peace.